Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this workshop on emotional intelligence, or as I like to call it, managing yourself and others. My name is Sana Mahmandar, and I'll be your guide for the next hour as we explore what it means to be emotionally intelligent, not just in theory, but also in practice. A little bit about me. I'm a university professor. I teach politics and global studies at Arizona State University in the US, and I'm also the CEO for the Center for Emotional Intelligence based in the US with services in Riyadh, Bahrain, and Dubai. Personally, I am passionate about helping individuals just like yourselves to improve how they connect, how they communicate, and how they handle the inevitable ups and downs of emotions and life in general. So, whether emotional intelligence is something new to you or you are looking to deepen what you already know, you are in the right place. Let's start. Today, our objectives is to understand and learn what is emotional intelligence, why is emotional intelligence important, are we really emotional or rational beings, how to increase our emotional awareness, and how to achieve emotional management, and in general, how to develop emotional intelligence. So let's start this journey together. Aristotle once said, anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, this is not easy. This quote by Aristotle is over 2,000 years old, and yet it perfectly captures the challenge at the heart of emotional intelligence. It reminds us that while emotions like anger are completely natural and easy to feel, the hard part is expressing them in a way that is measured, appropriate, and constructive. Anyone can become angry. That part is easy. It's natural, human emotion. But what isn't easy is managing that anger thoughtfully. Being angry with the right person, in the right amount, at the right time, for the right reason, and in the right way, that is emotional mastery. Let me give you a quick example. Picture this. You are in traffic, someone cuts you off, and your instinct to honk, yell, maybe even throw your hands up in the air. That's the easy part, the automatic reaction. But let's say you take a deep breath instead. You ask yourself, is this really worth it? You realize you are still on time, safe, and honestly, you have no idea what kind of a day that other person is having. That choice to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully, that's emotional intelligence. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Even Aristotle said it wasn't. But this is exactly what we are talking about today. Being able to feel something so intensely and still choose how to respond to it. This is really the essence of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is not about ignoring or suppressing your emotions, whether it's anger, frustration, sadness, or even joy. It's about being in control of them rather than letting them control us. So, this quote serves as a reminder emotional intelligence isn't about feeling, it's about managing those feelings wisely. And that's what we are here to learn today. So, what is exactly emotional intelligence? Before we dive deeper into emotional intelligence, we need to first break down the terms that makes up. emotions, and intelligence. And then we will bring them again back together. Let's start with the emotions part. Emotions are one of our oldest survival tools. As social animals, our survival depended on more than just physical strength. Our ancestors relied on intuition and feelings like fear, joy, or anger to make quick decisions, like running from danger, bonding with others, or fighting for survival. Long before we had words, we had emotions like joy, fear, and anger. We are born with the ability to understand and communicate with people long before we learned language and abstract reasoning. For example, a toddler that cannot speak yet is able to recognize when someone is sad and try to comfort them. Also, he or she can understand a look of anger as a signal for danger or a smile as a signal for safety without understanding a word he or she hears. So, emotions are like survival guides that have been hardwired into us over millions of years. They are not random, they evolved to help us notice what's important for our survival, and they each serve a purpose and prepare our body to take some kind of action. For example, fear helps us detect threats and gets our body ready to run or hide from danger. Anger gives us the energy to protect ourselves or stand up for something threatening us. Joy tells us what's good for us and encourages connection and bonding with others. Sadness signals loss and asks others for support. In short, emotions helped us survive, connect, and communicate. Even though we don't live in the wild anymore, these emotional reactions are still part of us. Emotions are our internal radar, telling us how we feel about a situation we are in, a person we encounter, or a decision we make. So, in a way, emotions are like data. They are giving us signals about what's happening inside of us and around us. When we understand them, we can make better decisions instead of just reacting. So, if emotions are hardwired within us for survival, understanding these emotions lead us to better manage them. Let's examine our most common emotions and their function. Let's start with anger. Anger is one of our oldest emotions, deeply wired into the brain for a reason. It evolved as part of the fight or flight response, helping our ancestors survive by giving them the strength to stand up against aggressors, to protect family members, or fight for resources and territory. One universal trigger for anger is the feeling of being endangered, not just physically, but emotionally or psychologically. That sense of danger might come from being insulted, treated unfairly, or blocked from reaching an important goal. In those moments, anger prepares us for a confrontation. The rush of blood into our face is a sign for the intruder to back off. Psychologically, anger shifts blood flows to our hands, so we are ready to strike or grab something. Our heart rate jumps, and adrenaline gives us an intense surge of energy. That's why anger can feel so intense, even when the threat isn't life or death. While we no longer face predators daily, our brains still process modern stresses through this ancient lens. For example, if you got an email, a rude email, you feel angry, although it's not life or death situation. So anger can be triggered with our modern stressors, although it's not connected to our survival. Fear. Fear is one of our oldest and most important emotions that we have. It helped our ancestors stay alive in dangerous environments. When they saw a wild animal or heard a strange sound at night, fear kicked in and told them, get out of there or be careful. Fear triggers the flight part of our fight or flight response. It prepares the body to escape danger. Your heart beats faster, your muscles tense, and your senses become sharper. Blood goes to the large skeletal muscles, such as in the legs, making it easier to run and flee danger. And the face becomes blanched, cold. You see the look of fear on everybody. It's like white face because the blood shunted away from it, creating the feeling that the blood runs cold in your face. Even today, fear keeps us safe. If you are walking too close to the edge of a cliff and suddenly feel scared, that is your brain warning you to step back. Or, for example, if you get a bad feeling about a dark alley at night, fear is helping you avoid that possible danger. So, fear is our alarm that helps us survive, even in situations that might not be survival related. For example, when you go on stage to perform, you get stage fright. Or if you have an exam and you have butterflies in your stomach, failing, if you're becoming afraid of failing, that is also the fear kicking in, although it's not survival related. So in our day to day, although we're not living in the dangerous forest that our ancestors lived in, fear still plays a huge role in our stressors. Joy is more than just a good feeling. It has deep roots in our evolution. It's the brain's way of saying, this is good, let's do it again. When our ancestors did something that helped them survive, like finding food, forming friendships, or caring for their children, they felt joy as a reward. This emotion encouraged them to keep doing things that were good for their survival and the survival of their group. For example, helping others or bonding with loved ones brought joy, which helped build strong communities. And in tough environments, having close, joyful relationships increase the chances of staying safe and supported. Even small joys like laughing, playing, or enjoying nature helped reduce stress and keep people mentally and physically healthier. That made them more likely to survive and thrive. So while joy feels like fun, it actually serves a powerful purpose. It motivates us to connect, to care, and keep going, even in hard times. Moving on to love. Love is one of the most powerful emotions we experience, and it has deep evolutionary roots. It originally evolved to help humans form strong bonds, which were essential for survival and reproduction. In early human history, individuals who stuck together, whether as partners, families, or tribes, had a better chance of surviving threats like predators, starvation, or even illness. Love helped create those strong emotional connections. For example, the love between parents and children made sure kids were protected and cared for. We are wired to love, and care for babies. And that is where the emotion of love is the strongest. Romantic love encouraged long-term bonding between partners, helping them raise these children together. And even love between friends or group members built loyalty, cooperation, and trust. Biologically, love triggers chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine that creates feelings of warmth, safety, and attachment. These feelings motivated people to stay close, protect one another, and work together, which made survival more likely. In short, love evolved not just to make us feel good, but to keep us connected. Surprise is one of the quickest emotions our brain can produce. It evolved as a way to help us respond instantly to something unexpected in our environment, especially things that could be dangerous. It evolved as a way to help us notice what can be threatening to our survival. For example, imagine walking through the woods and suddenly hearing a loud noise behind you. Before you even know what it is, your body freezes and your eyes widen. That is surprise kicking in. The lifting of the eyebrows in surprise allows the taking in of a larger visual sweep and also permits more light to strike the retina. This offers more information about the unexpected event, making it easier to shift our focus and attention in a split second and gives our brain a chance to gather more information, to reassess the situation and decide how to react, whether to fight, fly, or stay calm. Even today, this quick reset helps us respond to sudden changes or new information, like hearing a car horn while we're crossing the street. It keeps us alert, aware, and able to adapt quickly to our surroundings. So while it's brief, surprise is like an emotional alarm system, helping us survive by sharpening our senses when something unexpected happens. Moving on to disgust. Disgust is an emotion that evolved to protect us from things that could make us sick or harm our health. It's likely began as a way to avoid rotten food, bodily fluids, or anything that carried bacteria or diseases. When we see, smell, or even think about something contaminated, like spoiled meat, a dirty bathroom, or someone vomiting, our face automatically reacts. We curl our upper lip to the side as we wrinkle our nose slightly and pull our head back. These are all ways our body tries to distance itself from the threat by closing the nostrils against a noxious odor or to spit out poisonous food. The last emotion we're going to discuss today is sadness. Sadness is a natural emotional response to loss, whether it's a loss of a loved one, a failure, or something meaningful to us. It evolved as a way to slow us down and help us process what just happened. From a survival point of view, sadness helps us pause, reflect, and conserve energy during difficult times. It also signals to others that we need support. When someone is sad, their facial expressions and body language naturally invite comfort, which strengthen social bonds. That connection to others was critical in early human groups, where survival depended on cooperation and care. Sadness can also motivate growth. After a failure, we might feel down, we might feel lack of energy, but this situation helps us to reflect and learn from this experience so we can avoid the same mistake in the future. So even though sadness is painful, it plays a vital role. It helps us heal, seek support, and grow stronger over time. So after exploring these multiple emotions, we can sum it up by saying that emotions are physical signals that help us pay attention to what's going on inside of us, like feeling cold means we need warmth, hunger tells us to eat. Also, it is information about what's happening in our environment around us, like seeing a bear triggers fear, telling us to run and seek safety. Also, it is information about other people, what's happening with other people. For example, if someone's looking angry, it tells us we need to stay back and protect us from that angry person. And the last thing, emotions also act as information that we transmit to others as a way of communication. So if we are mad, others can tell, even without words, to back off and leave us alone. So emotions aren't random. They are tools that help us survive, communicate, and relate to others. In a way, emotions are like data. They are giving us signals about what's happening inside us and what's happening around us. Emotions work as our sixth sense. They give us important clues that our five senses might miss. Think of emotions like your internal data system. They give you useful information about what's happening inside you and around you. This information influences how we behave, how we relate to others, and how we make decisions. Recognizing that emotions are data, what do we usually do with data? We analyze and process data, correct? So to analyze and process this data, we need a system. And that system is our intelligence. Which leads us to the second part of emotional intelligence, the intelligence part. So what is intelligence? Intelligence is our unique human ability to think, reason, plan, and solve problems. It helps us understand and process information, recognize patterns, and make decisions based on logic and analysis, like solving a math problem, planning a budget, or troubleshooting a tech issue. All of these rely on cognitive intelligence. To understand how this processing system works, we need to dig deeper into the evolution of our brain. The brain did not arrive fully formed as we know it today. It was built over millions of years. It evolved in layers, each one adding new capabilities on top of the older one. At the very bottom, we've got the reptilian brain, which is the brainstem, the area you see in red. This is the oldest part. It controls survival functions, the basic life support functions that keeps you alive. Things you don't have to think about, like breathing, heart rate, how fast or slow your heart beats, blood pressure, swallowing and digestion, reflexes like coughing, sneezing, gagging, and blinking, and basic instinctive reactions. The brain stems handles automatic survival functions, the essential unconscious tasks that keeps you alive, even when you are sleeping or not paying attention. It's like your built-in autopilot for staying alive. Example, you are walking across the street and a car suddenly speeds towards you. You jump back before you even think about it. That's your reptilian brain in action. Instant survival mode. The second part of our brain, as mammals appeared, a new layer formed over the lizard brain, what we call the limbic system. It's the purple area in the middle. This layer's main functions are emotions. It generates emotional responses like fear, anger, joy, sadness, love, and pleasure. Also, it has the memory formation. It helps form and store emotional memories, especially powerful or traumatic experiences. It also houses motivation and behavior. It drives basic survival behaviors like hunger, thirst, sexual drive, and nurturing instincts. Also, emotional learning happens in this layer. It helps you learn from emotional experiences, like avoiding something that once caused you pain in the past. This area also detects threats, specifically the amygdala part, which is part of the limbic system. It quickly scans for danger and triggers the fight, flight, or freeze responses. Let me give you an example of the function of this area of the brain. You hear a song that reminds you of a childhood moment, and you suddenly feel nostalgic or tearful. Or if someone gives you a cold look and you feel anxious, even before you know why, that's your limbic system reacting. So everything we learned so far about emotions is actually housed in this layer of the brain. The limbic system is your emotional brain. It makes you feel, remember, and react. Finally, the most recent layer to evolve, the one you see in the blue area, is the neocortex. This is the most advanced part. The neocortex is our thinking brain. It handles all the high-level, complex stuff that makes humans different from animals. The main function of the neocortex are logical thinking and reasoning, like solving problems, analyzing information, and making decisions. Also, it is responsible for language and communication, like understanding words, forming sentences, speaking, reading, and writing. We also use this part of our brain for planning and organization, like thinking about the future, setting goals, making strategies. In this part of the brain, also self-awareness and reflection resides, like thinking about yourself, your emotions, your actions, and understanding and looking at your own thoughts. This part has also conscious control over our behavior, deciding not to act or act, choosing thoughtful responses instead of being impulsive. Also, this part is responsible for creativity and imagination, dreaming up new ideas, inventing things, creating art, stories, or solutions to problems. And lastly, in this area reside social behavior and empathy management, understanding others' perspectives and building complex relationships. In short, the neocortex is your rational brain. It lets you think, plan, communicate, and choose how to act instead of just reacting emotionally. Let me give you an example of the neocortex in action. You are writing an email to your boss after a heated debate. Although you are annoyed by them, you are editing your words to sound more professional and calmer. You are weighing pros and cons of this email before sending it out. That is your neocortex helping you to think things through. Now, here is the key point. The emotional brain existed long before the rational brain. What does that mean? If our emotional brain evolved way earlier than our rational brain, that means that emotions are so powerful. They are foundational in our existence, way before our thoughts were ready to make entrance through language. Let me tell you something fascinating. We don't just have one brain running the show. We actually have two minds, one that feels and one that thinks. The first is the emotional mind. It is fast, instinctive, and automatic. It reacts before you even realize what's happening. The second one is the rational mind. It is slower, deliberate, and logical. It reflects, analyzes, and makes sense of things. Now, here is the catch. When something happens, your emotional mind always reacts first. That's not a design flaw. It's a survival feature. Why? Because evolution favors speed over precision. It's better to jump away from a stick thinking it's a snake than to pause, analyze, and realize too late that it was a snake. That's how the emotional brain kept our ancestors alive. So when we face emotional situations like getting criticized, hearing bad news, or feeling hurt, our first reaction is often emotional, not logical. The thinking mind kicks in a moment later. That's why you might say something in the heat of the moment and only regret it later. Because the rational brain was still catching up with the emotional brain. That will take us to something very important. Let's talk about something that we have all experienced when emotions take over and logic disappears. This is called an emotional hijacking. The emotional mind, especially the small part of the brain called amygdala, the green one you see on your screen, acts like our radar for danger. Its job to detect threats fast, way faster than our thinking brain. It's a survival mechanism. Going back to our snake example, when you are hiking and you suddenly see something that looks like a snake, your amygdala doesn't wait to check facts. It just reacts. It floods your body with stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, and triggers fight, flight, or freeze. Your heart races, your muscles tighten, you are ready to act. That's great if you are dealing with a snake. But here's the problem. In today's world, the snake is more likely to be an email, a look from someone, or a critical comment. And your amygdala cannot tell the difference. It reacts the same way anyway. Let me tell you a quick story about emotional hijacking that many of us experienced before. A friend of mine once got an email from her boss that said, "Can we talk first thing in the morning?" That's it. No context, no smiley face, Just that one sentence. Immediately, her heart started pounding, her stomach dropped, her mind started racing. Did I mess something up? Am I in trouble? What did I do wrong? She barely slept that night. She even started drafting a defense in her head for a conversation that hadn't even happened yet. The next morning, the boss just wanted to check in on a new project and give her positive feedback. That episode that she experienced, that is emotional hijacking. When your mammal brain, the amygdala, takes over before your rational brain can respond. It happens to all of us. It happens on a daily basis. This emotional brain takes over before the rational brain gets a chance to think things through. And you react, even when there is no real threat. So, whatever was designed for survival, we are still using for our daily stresses. The truth is, our emotional system was shaped during a much harsher time when survival meant escaping predators, finding food for survival, and living past the age of 30. These emotions helped us react fast and stay alive. But the world has changed. We now deal with traffic, emails, deadlines, not lions or famine. Yet, our brain still reacts as if we are in danger. As we saw in the previous examples, your heart races during a work conflict as if your life is at risk. Or someone cutting in line triggers anger like they are stealing your last piece of bread. These strong reactions made sense in the wild, but not always in modern life. We are facing everyday challenges with a brain wired for emergencies. That's why we sometimes overreact, misread intentions, or feel threatened even when we are safe. We are confronting postmodern dilemmas with an emotional repertoire tailored to the emergencies and urgencies of the ice age. We are using an out-of-date neural alarm every day in our lives. So, knowing what you know now about emotions and the brain, do you think human beings are emotional or rational? Let this think in for a little bit. Rationality isn't natural. We like to think we are rational beings, that we make decisions based on logic. But the truth is, emotions often come first. Most of the time, our feelings are quietly steering the wheel, nudging us toward what feels good, familiar, or safe, not necessarily what's true or wise. This emotional bias shapes our thoughts. It's why we might avoid a tough conversation, chase approval, or make the same mistake over and over again without realizing our emotions are driving the behavior. So, what does it really mean to be rational? Rationality means pausing, even for a moment, to question your first impulse, to look deeper, to think before acting. And here's the key: that kind of a pause, the ability to reflect instead of reacting, is not something we are born doing well. It's a skill, it's a learned ability. And that skill is called emotional intelligence. So let's bring the two terms together, emotions and intelligence. as we discussed in the previous parts, emotions are information about ourselves and our environment that guide our behavior and impact our relationships with others. Intelligence is our unique human mental ability to process and reason information. Emotional intelligence is where those two come together. It's our ability to understand emotional information, both our own and other people's, and use that awareness as a guide for best behavioral outcome. So, emotional intelligence is the interaction of emotions and intelligence. Let's see examples of people with low emotional intelligence. A person with low emotional intelligence will have emotional outbursts, typically out of proportion to the situation at hand, has difficulty listening to others, argumentative, blames others, believes others are overly sensitive because they cannot understand how they feel, has difficulty maintaining friendships and other relationships, and uses stonewalling or refuses to see others' point of view. On the other hand, a person with high emotional intelligence will express themselves openly and respectfully without fear of offending others, will be resilient when new challenges, initiatives are introduced, is flexible, is consistent in celebrating creativity, is an active listener, and is compassionate. I am sure both examples, you've seen a lot of people in your lifetime, maybe more people with low emotional intelligence than high emotional intelligence, but we deal with people every day with these traits. So let's now define emotional intelligence in practical terms. Emotional intelligence is one, the ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others. This is about emotional awareness, being able to tune in to what you are feeling and also being able to sense the emotions of the people around you. For example, imagine you are leading a team meeting and you notice a colleague suddenly goes quiet and withdrawn after receiving feedback. Recognizing that shift, maybe is discomfort, embarrassment, or frustration, this awareness is the first step of emotional intelligence, picking up on that subtle shifts in her behavior. The second part of emotional intelligence is analyzing these emotions and deciding on what's the best rational course of action. This is where emotional understanding meets thoughtful response. So instead of reacting in the meeting by asking your teammate in public about their thoughts on the feedback, you take a break and approach them privately to check if everything is okay. So you handle the situation with emotional intelligence. Let's break down emotional intelligence further. Emotional intelligence is built on four core skills. These four skills are grouped into two big areas: how we manage ourselves, which is the personal competence on the top line, and how we manage relationships, that's the social competence on the bottom line. The personal competence, which is managing ourselves, this part is all about what's happening inside, how we understand and manage our own emotions. In this part, we need self-awareness. Let's say you are in a meeting and you feel irritated. Someone says something and you feel that urge to snap. But instead of reacting, you pause. You realize this isn't really about the meeting. You had a stressful morning, maybe traffic on the way, bad sleep, a missed deadline, and that tension followed you into the meeting. That moment of realization, that is self-awareness. It's the ability to name your emotion and know where it is coming from. Self-management. Now that you know how you are feeling, self-management is what you do with it. Instead of letting that frustration spills out, you take a deep breath, maybe you shift your body, sit back, soften your tone, and you choose to respond calmly. You stay present, constructive, in control. That is self-management in action. Now we look outwards, how we connect and interact with others, which is social competence, the managing relationships. This part is all about what is happening outside, how we understand and manage our relationships. We start by social awareness. Social awareness is all about empathy. Using the same example, in that meeting, you notice something else. A teammate who's usually vocal hasn't said a word. Most people might brush it past it, but something tells you to pay attention. You catch that small change in behavior. You recognize there is something going on beneath the surface. That ability to tune into others and sense their emotional state, that is social awareness. It is empathy in action. The social management part is what you choose to do to better the situation. So let's say after the meeting, you check in with your colleague, not to pray, just to say, hey, I noticed you seemed a bit off. Are you okay? Or maybe in the meeting itself, tensions start rising among others. Instead of letting it spiral, you help calm down the energy, validate what people are feeling, and guide the group back to focus. That is social management, using emotional insight to keep interactions positive even when emotions are running high. Let's dig deeper into each of these skills to understand it more. Starting with the personal competence. Personal competence has two components. The first component is self-awareness, understanding our emotions, where they come from, and what are our triggers. The second component is managing these emotions for best behavioral outcome. So we start with self-awareness. What do I recognize in myself? Self-awareness is the ability to recognize your emotions as they arise, right in the moment, and to understand how you typically react to certain people, situations, or stressors. But it goes deeper than just labeling your feelings. Self-awareness means asking, why am I feeling this way? What triggered this response? Was it the situation, the person, or something under the surface, like stress, insecurity, or past experiences? When we understand the root of our reactions, we give ourselves space to pause. And in that pause, we can choose to respond with clarity rather than react on impulse. Imagine you are in a team meeting. A colleague challenges your idea, not aggressively, but just questions it. Immediately, you feel a flash of irritation, maybe even embarrassment. Without self awareness, you might shut down, argue back defensively, or even hold a grudge. But if you practice self awareness, you pause and ask yourself, why am I feeling defensive? Is it because the idea was truly attacked? Or is it because deep down you are tying your self worth to being right in front of the group? You realize it's not really about the comment, it's about an old habit of needing approval to feel confident. With that insight, you can choose a better response. You acknowledge their point, stay open to feedback, and engage in discussion without personalizing it. Self awareness helps you protect your confidence rather than your ego. It turns emotional reactivity into emotional strength. How do we increase our self awareness? Self awareness often starts with one small shift, slowing down. Let's say you are at home with your family, it's been a long day, and suddenly someone makes a comment, maybe your partner or a sibling, and you snap. You raise your voice and then feel the same wave of regret. So, how do you handle that moment with emotional intelligence? Let's walk through 3 steps. Slow down, pause. Instead of reacting more or walking away in anger, stop and take a breath. Notice what's happening inside your body. Are you clenching your fists? Is your chest tight? That is your body telling you that you are becoming emotionally charged and you need to pay attention. Name your emotion. What are you feeling? Angry? Frustrated? Once you recognize what you are feeling, you brought awareness to your emotion. You stopped the autopilot mode from taking over. Remember emotional hijacking. The rational side caught the emotional side in action. Tell yourself, okay, I'm angry. I see I am angry. Let me get this anger out of the driver's seat. I'm going to take a break now and take no further action. Your rational mind stepped in and saved the moment from being carried on by the emotional brain. You stopped the emotional hijacking. Second thing you do is reflect. Later that evening, after all the emotions settle down, take a moment alone, maybe write in a journal or just think quietly. Ask yourself, what really set me off? What was my trigger? You might realize it wasn't about that one moment or one comment. It was the buildup of exhaustion or maybe feeling unappreciated. That reflection helps you spot patterns, your triggers, your strength, your limits. The more you reflect after an emotional episode, the more you understand your triggers and what sets you off. After a while, patterns will emerge. Once you recognize these patterns, you will be able to spot them as they surface. Awareness of these patterns gives you control over them rather than being controlled by them. The last thing you can do is meditate. So now, after you recognize your triggers and their patterns, once you notice them coming up, take a moment, just sit, breathe, let the noise fade. You don't need to fix the situation right now. Just give your emotions time to settle. No judgment, no awareness. Distance yourself from the trigger. Free yourself from impulsivity, from reacting impulsively, and just witness the moment. This is how you train your mind to respond with calm rather than react with chaos. These 3 steps, slowing down, reflecting, and meditating, help you create space between what you feel and what you do. And in that space, you find clarity and real emotional power. So let's move on to the second core emotional intelligence skill, self management. What can I do with the awareness that I gained? Self-management is what happens after you have recognized an emotion. It is the moment where you get to choose your response instead of letting the emotion choose for you. It's not about ignoring or suppressing what you feel. It's about managing how you express it. When emotions like anger, fear, or anxiety kick in, they can cloud your thinking. You might feel an urge to act quickly, to snap, shut down, or escape. But self-management gives you space. It is the ability to pause, breathe, and ask, what is the best way to handle this? That pause is so powerful. It's where awareness turns into intention and reaction becomes choice. Here's an example. Imagine you come home after a long, exhausting day, and your partner or family member immediately says something like, "You forgot to take out the trash again." You feel irritation spark instantly. You want to snap back. Do you have any idea how hard my day was? But instead of reacting automatically, you pause. You take a deep breath and remind yourself, they are not attacking me, they are frustrated about the trash. This isn't really about me personally. So you respond calmly. You are right. I forgot. I've had a rough day, but I'll take care of it now. That simple pause and reset stops a potential argument before it starts. You stay connected instead of creating distance, and you protect your peace. Self management is the space between feeling and reacting, where you choose a response that serves you and the relationship. How do we increase self management? There are ways to perfect self management. Let's say you are checking your phone first thing in the morning and you see a text message from your manager. The tone feels cold, maybe even critical. Immediately, your chest tightens, you feel annoyed, maybe even defensive. Here is how you might apply emotional intelligence in that moment, in three small but powerful steps. Take responsibility for your feelings. Instead of spiraling into why is she always like this? Or what did I do wrong? You pause and shift the question. You ask yourself, what's coming up for me right now? And what do I need to do to get clearer before I respond? This shift moves you from the blame or panic into ownership and clarity. It is not about your boss or her message. It's about you and why you are reacting emotionally to it. No matter what the situation is, your reaction should be calm and rational. Take a deep breath, calm your nerves, and calculate what is the best course of action ahead. Bring your rational brain into the driver's seat. The second thing you can do is be kind to your body. You notice you are running on caffeine and barely slept last night. Your body is on the edge, so your emotions are too. You step away from the screen, drink water, and grab a real breakfast. You give your body what it needs so your mind can settle. You know best what calms you down. Maybe listening to music, calling your best friend, or even watch cat videos. You know you best. Start working on it. And please note that caffeine and sugar, they mimic the effects of adrenaline. So they give you energy surge and then you take a dip down. So please try to limit those so you don't have a roller coaster effect all day on your emotion. The last thing you can do is calm down. You don't write back to your boss right away. You take a walk or just breathe for a few minutes. You reread the email once you calm and maybe realize the tone wasn't personal after all. It is just your boss's way. She is always assertive like that. Now you respond with professionalism and clarity, not emotion. You have done your best in this situation and you put it behind you. These micro moments, taking ownership, tending to your body, and calming down, are where emotional intelligence becomes real. They don't take much time, but they change everything about how you lead, relate, and communicate. So, why is it important to master personal competence? Sometimes we act in ways that surprise us. We say something we instantly regret, chase a goal that deep down we know isn't right for us, or fall for someone who clearly isn't good for us. It's like there's a stranger inside, making choices we don't fully understand. This part of us doesn't respond to logic. It ignores our best intentions. That emotional, impulsive, unpredictable part can feel like it's in the driver's seat, and that's what makes it so frustrating. But here's the truth, we all have that side, emotional, impulsive, unpredictable. The first step toward emotional intelligence is not fighting that side of us. It is recognizing it, naming it, and slowly learning how to respond to it with awareness and compassion. Because the more we understand this inner stranger, the less power it has to run the show. Self management isn't about suppressing that part of you, it's about learning how to work with it, not be ruled by it. So, after finishing our personal competence, now let's shift from understanding ourselves to understanding others. This is where social competence come into play. Social competence has two components. The first component is social awareness, understanding other people's emotion, where they come from, and what are their triggers. The second component is managing these emotions for best relationship outcomes. Let's start with the first component, social awareness. Social awareness is what I recognize in others. It's your ability to truly notice and understand what others are feeling, even if you don't share the same emotions. It's about tuning in, not just to what people say, but how they say it, their tone, body language, energy. And let's be honest, it's easy to stay wrapped up in your own heads. We've got deadlines, stress, to do lists. But the moment we pause and really pay attention to the people around us, something shifts. You don't have to agree with that other person feels. But when you take the time to understand where it's coming from, you build a bridge, one made of trust, respect, and connection. The key, quiet your inner voice. Stop planning your responses. Just be with the other person. Watch their posture, hear their tone, sense what's underneath the words. That's where connection begins. Not by fixing or judging or debating, but by seeing someone as they are. Picture yourself working at a coffee shop. You hand someone their coffee, but the customer snatches the coffee aggressively and not even say thank you while avoiding eye contact with you. Most people would just think, wow, how rude, and move on. But if you are practicing social awareness, you look deeper. Maybe that person is stressed, upset, or dealing with something heavy today. Maybe it's not about you or anyone here. Maybe they are just struggling inside. Instead of reacting with judgment or irritation, you respond with calmness. Hope your day gets better. These small moments of empathy are little bridges that we build, even with strangers. So, social awareness isn't about agreeing with bad behavior, it's about seeing the human behind the moment. So, how do we increase social awareness? You start by paying attention. Notice visual clues. You already have the unconscious ability to read another person's emotional state from subtle changes in their expression, their movements, their posture, their breathing, and changes in muscle tension. Pay attention to these changes. Notice voice changes. In the same way, people's voice tone, pitch, and volume can tell you a lot about their emotional state. Practice listening, not just to the words that people say, but to the tonal qualities of their voice. Let's say you are having lunch with a friend. You ask how they are doing, and they reply, "Yeah, I'm fine, just the usual." But here is what you notice: their shoulders are hunched, they are stirring their food, but not really eating. Their smile flashes, but it fades fast. Their voice sounds flatter than usual, quieter, slower, a little distant. Their words say, "I'm fine," but everything else say, "I'm not okay." That is social awareness in action. You didn't need a dramatic outburst to know something is off. You just needed to pay attention. Your eyes and ears caught what the words didn't say. So you lean in and say, "Are you sure you don't seem like yourself today?" That small moment, that check in, might be exactly what they needed to feel better and seen. We have talked about recognizing our emotions and the emotions of others. Now let's bring it all together in how we interact with people. This brings us to the fourth pillar of emotional intelligence: self management, also called relationship management. Social management is where emotional intelligence becomes action. It's your ability to use what you know about your emotions and others to navigate relationships in a healthy, productive way. It's not just about staying calm yourself, it's about helping the room stay calm. It's about knowing when to speak, how to encourage, when to step in, especially in moments of conflict, tension, or teamwork. In practice, this shows up in everyday situations: stepping in to ease a tense conversation, motivating someone who's discouraged, giving feedback in a way that is heard, not resisted. Social management is about moving things forward, not by control, but by connection. It's the skill that builds trust, resolves conflict, and turns emotional insight into real leadership. Let's take an example. You are at a family gathering. Two relatives, maybe your uncle and your cousin, start getting into a heated debate over something small, like which football team is better. The voices rise, people get uncomfortable, and the energy at the table shifts. Instead of letting it spiral, you step in with a light, positive comment, like, "Looks like we've got some real passion at this table, but hey, we are here to enjoy each other, not win debates. Let's agree both teams are terrible this year and pass the dessert." You diffuse the tension with humor, shift the focus, and protect the good mood of the gathering without embarrassing anyone. That is social management, reading the emotional temperature, staying centered yourself, and gently guiding the group back to connection and ease. Social management requires empathy, putting yourself in other people's shoes, seeing their perspective, and allowing them to have their emotions. If you accept your own feelings and know it is hard to control them, You will feel much more comfortable with strong emotions in other people, knowing that, just like you, they are doing the best they can. Let me walk you through a real life moment where emotional intelligence shows up. Imagine this: you are on a video call with a teammate. She's usually upbeat, but today she seems distracted and short. Halfway through, she pushes back sharply on a suggestion you make. It stings. You are tempted to get defensive, but you pause and practice three key relationship skills. Empathy. First, you take a breath and remind yourself, this isn't about me. You put yourself in her shoes. Maybe she's under pressure. Maybe she's dealing with something outside work. Empathy helps you see her as a whole person, not just someone who snapped. Allow others to have their emotions. Instead of judging her reaction or needing her to fix her tone, you let her feel what she feels. You remember how it feels to be overwhelmed, and you choose patience. You don't take it personally. You think, she's probably doing the best she can today. That softens your response. Learn how to take feedback and give praise. After the meeting, you message her, not to confront, but to check in. Hey, I noticed you seemed off. If you need anything, I've got your back. And you add, also, your idea about the project timeline was actually really sharp. Thanks for raising it. You don't ignore the tension, but you also don't escalate it. You lead with care and you show respect. That's how trust grows. In one small moment, you practice empathy, emotional grace, and meaningful feedback. And that's what real emotional intelligence looks like in relationship. So why mastering social competence is so important? Mastering ourselves is great, but we don't live alone in this world. We are part of a greater unit that we interact with others every day. And it is equally important to understand others' emotions and manage successfully our relationships with emotional intelligence. Let's be honest, we all run into difficult people in life. They might be bosses, teammates, even friends. Some of them are aggressive, others are more subtle, passive aggressive, manipulative, or just self centered. What makes it tricky is that they often seem not too difficult at first. They show up as confident, charming, full of energy and ideas, and we get pulled in. But later, we realize the truth. Maybe their confidence is fake, their ideas fall apart, or they are quietly sabotaging others out of jealousy. Some people use charm to get ahead, even if it means stepping on others along the way. The key is to learning to spot those red flags earlier so we don't get emotionally caught up or blindsided. Because the sooner you see clearly, the sooner you can protect your energy, set healthy boundaries, and choose who you give your time and trust to. We reach our final destination. Why is emotional intelligence important? Emotional intelligence is not about being nice all the time. It's about being aware, intentional, and connected with ourselves first and then with others. It starts in small moments, like a meeting or a casual encounter, but it ripples out into every conversation, every relationship, and every challenge. When we practice the four skills we covered, we don't just perform better, we show up more human. When we are emotionally aware, we make wiser choices. We don't just react, we respond with intention. By understanding our own motivations and desires, we can break free from old negative patterns that hold us back. And instead of jumping to conclusions about others, we pause and look deeper. Awareness gives us clarity. Management gives us control. Together, they lead us to the right next step every single time. One final word: the most influential person you will talk to is you. Emotional intelligence begins inside, with how you notice your feelings, how you speak to yourself, and how you choose your next move. At the end of the day, the most influential conversation you will ever have is the one you will have with yourself. Because the voice you hear the most is your own. How you talk to yourself will shape how you show up for others and for your life. So be mindful, be kind, and be wise. Thank you so much for giving me the time. And if you have any questions about emotional intelligence, please reach out to the Center for Emotional Intelligence and follow us on our social media platforms. Thank you so much. See you at our next speaker session.